This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Shalom Aleichem. Yesterday we discussed some of the historical background of the Iggeres HaRamban and the circumstances that led the Ramban to write this letter, whether it was when he traveled to Eretz Yisrael and he was in Akko, or whether it was a letter that he wrote to his son when he was still in Spain. We discussed that ultimately the Ramban did make it to Eretz Yisrael. However, this letter, he advises his son on a program of how he could scale the heights of the service of Hashem and reach very high levels of ruchnius. And the basic program of the Ramban is that his son should control himself from anger, acquire the midah of humility, come to the madrega of fear and not sinning. Ultimately, he will come to the madrega of some form of ruach hashchina and ruach hakodesh. So it's interesting. In this program of scaling the heights of avodas Hashem, there is no mention of fulfillment of any mitzvahs. Nowhere does it say he should wear tefillin, he should wear tzitzis, he should learn Torah. Apparently, it is possible to focus on the following items: not getting angry, being humble, fearing sin, and that takes you straight to the top. So from here we learn a very important lesson, that the foundation of all ruchnios is midos tovos. And from midos tovos one will come to all forms of avodas Hashem. That it is possible for a person, obviously you need to fulfill all the mitzvahs, but in terms of point of emphasis, there is no mention in the Ramban of the fulfillment of any mitzvah. So we learn that the basis of avodas Hashem is the Tikkun Hamidos, and Rav Goldberg cites the words of the Reb Chaim Vital in the Shari Kedusha. The Reb Chaim Vital in the Shari Kedusha says that the foundation of all 613 mitzvahs are midos, and that's why midos are not mentioned in the Chumash. There is no mention in the Torah, don't get angry, be humble. And that is because it's analogous to somebody who hires an architect, and the architect hires a builder, and the builder builds a big building, and the building collapses, and you do a survey on the building, and it turns out the builder did not make a foundation. And you say to the builder, what kind of nincompoop are you? Why didn't you make a foundation? You say, well, it wasn't in the drawing. So it wasn't in the drawing? What do you mean? We don't have to draw that. It goes without saying, if there's a building, there has to be a foundation. Same thing with the Torah. The Torah doesn't have to talk about midos tovos, because they are the very foundation of the Torah. We see this in Chazal say someone who gets angry, it's like they served idols. It says someone who's arrogant, it's like they're kofer be'ikr. So, since arrogance and anger are so fundamental, they're not counted in the 613 because they're more basic than that. That Reb Chaim Vital says, "V'nimtza ki yoiser tzarich lizar mimidos harois yoiser min kiyum hamitzvos aseh v'lo aseh." You have to be more careful about midos than you have to be about fulfillment of mitzvahs, because if you're a bal midos tovos, it will be easy to fulfill the mitzvahs. Now we understand what Chazal say, that humility and shiflus bring to Ruach HaKodesh. Eliyahu Hanavi says Torah can only be explained by someone who is not a kapdan. Or the Gemara in Sanhedrin says, who is a ben olam haba? One who is shefal berach va'anvasan. It does not say a word about the fulfillment of the mitzvahs, and that is because the fulfillment of midos is more basic and more fundamental, which is exactly what the Ramban is saying, that by being careful from kas and gaiva, that will bring to the road to success. So Ramban begins, Shema b'ni musar avicha. V'al titoish Torah simecha, that is a pasuk in Mishlei. Listen, my son, to the rebuke of your father. Do not forsake the instruction of your mother. When it comes to a father, it says listen. When it comes to the mother, it's don't forsake. Because the father is giving explicit instruction. The father is telling you, do A, don't do B, so you need to listen attentively. The mother's not telling you anything. The mother is caring for the household. But through her behavior, you need to absorb her mode of conduct, and therefore it says, do not forsake the Torah of your mother. Now, the Torah of your mother might be a little different than the Torah of your father. That is, the Maharam Chagiz, in the Mishnah's Chachamim, says, the mother teaches the child to put their hand on their eyes when they say Kriya Shema. Even though there's no mitzvah d'oraisa to cover your eyes or even to close your eyes. But she's teaching you to believe in Hashem with your eyes closed. She's teaching you a certain emunah pshuta. So even though it doesn't say this, it's not documented, but you don't listen to her, you don't forsake her ways. Ramban says, Tisnahig tamid. Train yourself always, ledaber kol dvarecha benachas, to speak all your words calmly. L'chol adam, to every person. Every person includes even him. I mean, even the guy who you don't speak calmly to. U'v'chol in all times. All times means even then. Even at the times you're not calm. Even 5 minutes to Shabbos, even when you're in a rush. Uvizet tinotzel menakas, and by doing so you'll be spared from anger. The Ramban is saying you need to train yourself, tisnahig tamid, accustom yourself always. This is something that the Gra taught in the Iggeres HaGra, that hergel al kol davar shultain. What dominates a person's behavior are their habits. So you need to get into the habit. Because when you get into a habit, then it becomes a reflex. It becomes your intuitive response. It becomes by nature, by rote, and it minimizes the challenge. It becomes instinctive. My kids were having an argument whether animals have feelings. So one of my kids said, you can't hurt an animal, you hurt the animal's feelings. So my son said, Naftali said, he's a big expert in animals. He said, no, animals don't have feelings. So one of them said, what do you mean elephants have feelings? Naftali said, no, elephants don't have feelings. It's just an instinct. They instinctively act in a certain way. That if an elephant dies, the other elephants instinctively have certain practices. But they don't feel it. There are no actual feelings. It's just instinct. So, but on the other hand, human being does feel and does have emotion. But our job is to make our behavior instinctive. Then we sort of respond automatically. So you want to train yourself. You want that your default mode of speech should be calm. This way, even when someone challenges that and you don't want to speak calmly and you want to rip in, you remain calm. Not because you sort of chose to do that, only because that's your habit. And if you get into the right habits, it minimizes a lot of the challenge in life. The Gemara, in terms of talking gently, Gemara in Yuma says in that Pevav, it says, V'yahavta yis Hashem lekecha, you should love God, but you should also cause the name of Shamayim to be beloved through you. That someone who learns Chumash, learns Mishnah, serves Tamei Chachamim, and speaks calmly, what do people say about him? Fortunate is his father who taught him Torah. But if the person learns a lot and does not speak gently, then people say, what good does the Torah do to his personality? So therefore, the first step in the service of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is to get in the habit of speaking calmly. To who? To everyone. When? Always. Okay, Rabbi Say, we will continue Bez Hashem Monday. Tomorrow at 2:30 is the Shimru Shir. Wishing everyone a great day. Kol Tov.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.